UFC Vegas 27, aka UFC Fight Night. We have Rob Font versus Cody Garbrandt. He goes by the name of Zan. I go by the name of Harris, and we go by the name of Boxing MMA Picks. We are back with another UFC prediction and analysis video. We've given you our prelim picks already. Of course, we have our main card picks coming up. Let me tell you a little bit about Boxing MMA Picks first. We give you, from a betting perspective, fight-by-fight analysis on every UFC card that comes out week over week. We want to let you know which fights are worth the value, which fights are definitely not worth the value, and which ones you want to stay away from. We want to give you sort of a which underdog has the best shot of winning, and if you even stick around to the end, you might get a little bit of parlay action as well. Again, all of this is from a Vegas perspective. Our objective is to make you money. As I mentioned, our prelim video is out already. Check that one out to get the full card breakdown. But this video particularly will be just a main card analysis. We have 6 fights on our main card. Why don't we get right into it? A great fight to start off our main card. This is a fight that could, in some ways, headline a fight night card. We have Jack Hermansson versus Edmen Shahbazyan. This one is tough. This is a really good fight, a really tough fight. You look at Jack Hermansson, primarily a grappler, wrestler style of fighter. When you look at him on the feet, he's going to show that jab a lot. He'll stay pretty light on the feet as well. Good bounce in his step. Pretty satisfied with his movement. We see how his significant strikes landed per minute fare as a result of what he does on the feet. Bit of an underrated one too, bit of an underrated sort of overall punching diversity. Again, I know he's known as that grappler wrestler style of fighter, but I'm going to give him a little bit of credit in the stand-up as well. We saw some moments on the feet versus Marvin Vettori in his last fight. And we do have to respect his ability to go 5 rounds with Vettori, primarily on the feet. That kind of says a lot about his sort of range of game, right? Decent kicks. He'll absolutely use them. He'll fake the level changes. Good entries for takedowns as well. Don't really love his numbers. Only 35% accuracy. Only 2 takedowns landed per fight. But again, he has some good entries. He has the ability to get you on the ground, and he has good wrestling. He has good grappling. When we're looking at Edmen Shahbazyan, there's a lot of reasons to like him, right? He's still only 23 years old. Yes, he suffered his first loss versus Derek Brunson 9 months ago, but that's Derek Brunson. That's a top level talent, right? A good stand-up. He definitely has some pop on his punches. Definitely throws a lot into his strikes. Presents somewhat of a boxing style on the feet. Pretty hand-heavy in his striking approach. You look at his record there, 11-1, as I mentioned. Just suffered the first loss versus Derek Brunson. 9 of those 11 wins are by KO, and I think almost all of them, if not all of them, are round 1 KOs. So very dangerous on the feet. If he touches you, you can definitely go down here. The obvious blueprint in this fight is is watching Edmen Shahbazyan's last fight versus Derek Brunson, where Brunson just said, forget it, man, I'm taking it to the ground, right? It's going to be a question of whether or not Hermansson can do the same thing that Derek Brunson did. Now, statistically, he can't. Again, 2 takedowns per fight, only 35% accuracy. But can he do enough wrestling to win the rounds? That's what we're going to have to find out, right? A lot of ways, this is a very tough fight. I think Shahbazyan is very tough and very dangerous in that first round. My gut almost says to go with Shahbazyan, I should say. But Hermansson has a favorable matchup. When you have decent stand-up with the ground and the wrestling advantage, I'm going to have to lean in your favor. We've seen that formula kind of work in the UFC. So, I'm kind of going against my gut here and hoping it doesn't cost me. But Jack Hermansson is my pick.
No, that's fair. That's a fair pick here. When I look at Edmen Shahbazyan, I look at a can crusher, right? I look at a guy that beat a bunch of cans, right? I guess his first fight, he fought a 3-2. Okay, that's his first fight. Then 0-0 guy, then a 0-1, 0-0, 1-4, 17-38, and then he got invited to the Contender Series because of the Ronda Rousey hookup, because he's coached by Ronda Rousey's coach, right? So he fought on the contender series against a 34-year-old Antonio Jones, who was 7-1, who's now 7-4. So beating him, like, obviously the UFC picked the right guy for Shahbazyan to look good, and Shahbazyan looked good. He won in the first round. In the UFC, like, he beat Darren Stewart, Charles Byrd, Jack Marshman. Three guys that I don't really rate that high in the UFC. When you look at Darren Stewart, he's beat Maki Pitolo, Darren Wynn, Bevan Lewis, and Charles Byrd and Eric Spicely. So he hasn't really beaten anybody to get me to think that Darren Stewart win is a really, really good win. It's a good name on your record, but really when you break it down, Darren Stewart hasn't really shown up when he fought a good competitor. And then he beat, knocked out Brad Tavares. That's a pretty good win. But Brad Tavares has been knocked out 2 times before that. Once against Tim Bosch, once against Robert Whittaker. So now he's knocked out for the 3rd time against Edmen Shahbazyan. So he was knocked out 3 times in 6 losses. So this guy definitely has shown that he can get knocked out. But that's a good knock, but that's a good showing. And that's solid competition. So I look at Jack. He's fought the best of the best, right? So I think Jack is just the better fighter here. I think he's going to be able to have the better cardio, be able to push that pace. I'm not sure that Shahbazyan can fight at that pace in the 2nd round. Hermansson is not like Brunson, but Hermansson is more dangerous if he gets on top. So I could see Hermansson getting a ground and pound. I can see him choking him out. But I definitely see Hermansson winning this fight here. He's fought the much better guys. And I really believe Shahbazyan, aside from Tavares and maybe Darren Stewart, there's nobody else on his record. So I'm going to go with Jack Hermansson. I'm pretty comfortable he gets this done.
Yep. Again, on the side of Shahbazyan, dangerous, perhaps too young. So Jack Hermansson, has a lot of paths here. And again, just echoing that pick, I definitely see him getting it done as well. Why don't we move on to fight number 2? We have David Dvořák versus Raulian Paiva. Taking a look at Dvořák, I mean, you see his record there at 19-3. At one point he was 4-3. He's actually on a 15-fight winning streak. I like his stand-up a lot. Good setups, good calf kicks, good counter punches. Takes his time on the feet to read the opponent. Really likes that in the ring. Good head movement, good striking defense. He has a pretty good pace about him as well. And I think is a pretty, high IQ fighter on the feet. Taking a look at Raulian Paiva, 2-fight win streak. So he's 2-2 in the UFC. Of course, before coming into the UFC, he was on a 12-fight win streak in his own right. So can't take that away from him. And he's a pretty good striker as well, right? Really good kicks, good high kicks, good body kicks. I would say his attack is just leg dominant in general. Although he has, pretty decent hands as well. What I will say is, again, I think you're looking at a fight that is going to stay on the feet. I don't expect either fighter to take this to the ground. I do think David Dvořák will have the better performance here. I think he's just a bit sharper on the feet. Paiva's live in some ways because he is a game opponent. He is a quality opponent. But in a lot of other ways, I feel pretty good about David Dvořák in this fight. So I'll keep my analysis relatively short. Striking match. I think Dvořák is better on the feet. He's my pick.
Yeah, I'm echoing that, man. I really like Dvořák. He's hard, man. He's a hard guy to fight because this guy does not get tired, and he pushes the pace that in the 3rd round, Dvořák is looking like it's the 1st round, right? So when you look at Paiva, he arguably lost to Zhalgas Zhumagulov. The Bontarin fight, yeah, he got cut. He probably would have came back in that fight. But in this fight, I just think Dvořák, I think the footwork, I think the movement, I think the activity, the amount of strikes he's pushing. And then as you get tired, and he can hold you on the cage as well, but as you get tired, he backs you up against the cage, keeps piecing you up. As you get tired, he's still going 3 rounds, right? With this same pace. So I'm pretty confident he gets this done. I'm pretty confident Dvořák wins this fight. So Dvořák's definitely my pick here. And yeah, that's a confident pick for me.
I'm not mad at that at all. And I did forget to mention, just since you mentioned it, I'll echo it. I love the value there at minus 150. He's probably my most confident pick of the main card. Wait till the end of the video. You'll kind of see if that's the case or not. But so good value there for David Dvořák, minus 150. I feel pretty good about him as well. Good pick. Definitely a good pick. Let's move on to fight number 3. From a good feeling to probably the hardest fight on the main card, at least for me. I'll speak for myself. Felicia Spencer versus Norma Dumont. Taking a look at Felicia Spencer, I mean, she's been off for almost a year since her title loss, unsurprisingly, to Amanda Nunes. Big and strong physically for this 145-pound featherweight division, especially with the style that she has. She's great at clinching you against the cage. I mean, she keeps you there. She's a threat to land the takedown. Don't really look at those numbers. Those numbers do not tell the story. 10% takedown accuracy at 0.4 takedowns per fight. It doesn't tell the full story in terms of her being a threat, right? She can clinch you there, like I said. She'll land those takedowns, and she has a good ground game, good top control, good ground and pound, good ability just to stay busy and stay on top of you. In terms of some of her accolades, she's a BJJ black belt. She's also a Taekwondo black belt. So again, that speaks to her ground ability. As for her stand-up, I mean, it's pretty basic stand-up, basic MMA stand-up in my eyes. That could be a problem for her, because when we look at Norma Dumont, both of these ladies have 10 fights or less, so it's not like either one is way more experienced than the other.
What percent are you?
Say that again?
Sorry.
No worries.
Sorry. Go ahead.
All good. So Norma Dumont, I mean, on the stand-up, she's a switch style with the stand-up, switch stand style, I should say. Uses that leg kick a lot. Respectable stand-up with some pop in her punches. She looks comfortable on her feet, as we saw in her last fight versus Ashley Evans-Smith. That was a winning performance. Has a lot of good feints in her stand-up, good strong clinch in her own right, grappling and ground specialist, good takedowns again in her own right. Obviously, you got to look at, do they have a common opponent? In this case, it's Megan Anderson. Both of them had Megan held against the cage. So both of them showed, hey, I have that strength, I have that physicality to hold Megan Anderson. Yeah, she's a little more slender, but she is still a big girl. Hold her against the cage and use that strength. The difference is that Felicia Spencer was able to use that to her advantage, whereas Norma Dumont, she wasn't strong enough to keep her there. And eventually she got knocked out. And what's interesting about Norma Dumont getting knocked out in that fight, she was extremely exhausted after that clinch exchange. After that, trying to get her to the ground, trying to hold her against the cage, she was completely gassed. That's something that really concerns me in this fight. Also, what I want to note is that Felicia Spencer should have the size advantage in this one, in my opinion. I think Norma Dumont should actually be fighting at 135 pounds, where I think she's a lot more dangerous. At 145, I mean, she doesn't look the biggest to me. I think Felicia Spencer can potentially capitalize on that. Another thing that's concerning, and I mentioned it in the Megan Anderson fight that Norma Dumont had, that cardio, it might just be very low at this weight class. It's a small sample size to use, but I do have to factor that in. She could be done after one round, right? I mean, that said, her cardio actually looked good, or decent, I should say, when she fought her last fight versus Ashley Evans-Smith. Although that fight was at 135, she actually came in 4 pounds overweight at 139. So I really don't know what to take from that when it comes to Norma Dumont's cardio. And again, if she's completely, done after one round, it's going to be a nightmare for her. In a lot of ways, this is a tough fight to call. I want to say Spencer because I do think she'll be more solid. I want to say Dumont because I feel like she probably has more talent. Just as good on the ground, better stand-up, maybe more pop in the stand-up as well. But ultimately, my bet here is on cardio. The pace that I anticipate Felicia Spencer pushing, or really even both fighters pushing, I don't think that's a pace that Norma Dumont can keep up with. I don't think Norma Dumont will last more than 6 or 7 minutes in terms of top-level cardio before she really fades really badly. So might be a very tough path to victory for Spencer, but I think ultimately Felicia Spencer will get it done, and the Canadian is my pick.
Yeah, I'm going to be real quick here. I think Felicia gets this done. Felicia has only lost to Cyborg and Amanda Nunes, the two best female fighters of all time. And fighting Megan Anderson and Zara Farron, she made quick work. All she needed was one takedown, and she finished both of those fights, right? So I see this going pretty similar to that. I just don't think Norma's that big. I think she's not a good size for this division. I think Spencer's going to be too strong. She's going to get this to the mat, and I think she's going to look for a finish pretty early.
Yeah, wouldn't be surprised if she gets the finish as well. So why don't we get off of that fight, and why don't we move on to fight number 4 of our main card. We have Justin Tafa versus Jared Vanderaa. I won't spend a lot of time on this one at all. I mean, you look at Justin Tafa, he lost his last fight versus Carlos Felipe, has big power, big right hook as a southpaw, could definitely sneak up on you with his timing. Very flat-footed, not surprising, as this is a heavyweight fight. Jared Vanderaa, on the other hand, he lost his last fight versus Sergey Spivak. Big, slow, sturdy type of fighter, very hittable. Definitely has a chin, though. He'll go for the takedown. We see his takedown accuracy there at 100%. Small sample size, of course, landing one takedown per fight. He'll make it dirty against the cage if needed. Ultimately, this is a heavyweight beware type of fight. It's really going to be about who cracks who first, because I do think both guys will have a shot at and probably will crack each other. It's just that I think Justin Tafa will land the big one first. I think he's the better striker. I think he'll get it done. I think he'll stay on the feet. Justin Tafa, I'll keep it short. He's my pick.
Yeah, Justin's my pick. Just like the Juan Adams fight, there was that concern Juan Adams could take Justin to the ground. Justin had a bit of know-how. He kept it on the feet, knocked him out. I see it pretty similar. I think Jared, though, can pull off an upset because he does have wrestling, and in this fight, his wrestling is going to be better than it really is, because Tafa is not a wrestler. Tafa is like a Mark Hunt. He keeps it on the feet, and he's really good. He has really good striking, good combos, good power. I'm going to take Justin, though. I just think that even if Vanderaa gets him down, Tafa has shown that he's tough. I don't think Vanderaa can keep that takedown pace for second, third round. And in that time, Justin's going to be able to have a big advantage on the feet. So as long as it's on the feet, Justin's going to have a big advantage. And I think most of the fight will be on the feet. So I'm going to go Justin here to knock out Jared Vanderaa.
Yep, definitely. And again, I'll just echo for the listeners from a actual betting perspective. Heavyweight beware, heavyweight beware, heavyweight beware. Be very careful actually putting any coin on this. But nonetheless, you got both of our predictions. We're both going with Justin Tafa. Why don't we take it to the co-main event of the evening? In that case, we have Xiaonan versus Carla Esparza. I'm going to predict this is the fight that loses the most amount of people money. And I think the reason why that is because a lot of people are going to be enticed to go with Xiaonan. But let me provide some analysis on this. When we look at Yan, I mean, she's on a 11-fight win streak. She's a really good striker, really good boxer, has that sort of Chinese striking style that we've seen, show itself a lot in the UFC lately. I know I've mentioned it in a number of our videos. She puts all into her strikes, definitely, even down to her grunt, puts a lot into it, comes with a constant aggression in her pace and her strikes, good jab, good combinations with the hands, good 1-2s. I saw some decent takedown defense out of her as well. She seems to have a pretty good base when she's placed against the cage, but she's going up against Carla Esparza, of course, who, don't sleep on her. She's actually on a 4-fight win streak, and we're talking quality wins. Marina Rodriguez, who now all of a sudden might land a fight with Joanna Jędrzejczyk. She beat her in her last fight. Michelle Waterson, who just fought a main event, she beat her 2 fights ago. Alexa Grasso, she beat. Viana Jandiroba, she beat. And, she does it the same way in every fight. What I will say about Carla Esparza is that she's always in a very close fight, right? A lot of fights are decided by split decision or majority decision. So either way you look at it, even if you bet on Carla Esparza, it's never going to be sort of a confident performance where for sure she won all 3 rounds, or for sure she won a unanimous decision. So just be very careful with that. But nonetheless, I mean, we know Carla Esparza is going to be a pretty relentless wrestler. Pretty, relentless when in her approach. She's going to get the fight to the ground. She's going to do everything that she can do to keep it there. This is a classic striker versus wrestler matchup. In some ways, you want to think Xiaonan is just going to plow right through her. She's she's way better on the feet. If she can avoid the takedown, she should get it done. But we kind of said the same thing about Marina Rodriguez. I've seen Esparza go up against higher level strikers, or at least strikers that I deem to be higher level than Xiaonan. She ate the shots that came her way. Her face wore the damage, but she still ate it enough to still implement her relentless wrestling style. And especially with that cardio, I mean, I don't remember if those fights were 5 rounds back then, but nonetheless, she can absolutely go 15 minutes without any problem. A 3-round fight is no problem to her at all. And what's interesting, if you watch Xiaonan, I think it was her last fight versus Claudia Gadeja. Claudia was able to get her down and have moments on top. The only problem was that Claudia has 0 cardio, and we all know that. Carla Esparza, on the other hand, has cardio to last the entire fight. So if we can get, that ability to take Xiaonan down, as Claudia Gadeja showed, Carla Esparza should be able to get it done for more than 1 round. And I anticipate Carla Esparza making a lot of people unhappy here, because she might not be the most fancy pick to choose on this one, but she's actually going to be my pick. I'm going with Carla Esparza. I'm going with the underdog. I think the relentless wrestling is going to be a little bit too much. I don't know if Xiaonan is ready for that, so I'm going with Esparza.
Yeah, this is a tough fight because UFC definitely wants Yan to win this fight here. They want to push her up, let her be one of the contenders for the title, right? Because China's a big market. This is all business, right? So Zhao Yan, definitely the UFC wants to win here, and I like your pick. That's a real good pick here, because when you see how this fight's going to play out, it's a 3-round fight. Carla Esparza can wrestle for 2 rounds, a guaranteed thing. And what she does good is she'll win the first round with her wrestling. She'll lose the second, but then the 3rd round, she pulls off a takedown when there's 3 minutes left, and then seals that round. Right now, the problem with this fight is it's going to come down to who's the judge of the fight, who's judging the fight, because it's going to be, do you value that the striking that Yan was doing during the fight more than the wrestling that Esparza was doing? So this fight, they're both going to do their thing, but it's going to come down to who do you think is going to is the winner? And I think that's how close this fight's going to be. I'm going to echo you. I'm going to go with Esparza, because you know what? She's been screwing people over for a while. If you really look at some of these fights, she screwed people over in that Marina Rodriguez fight, some people in the Waterson fight. She definitely screwed people over in the Alexa Grasso fight. And she definitely screwed people over in the Bruno fight. Not me, but I'm saying people. She was underdog in most of these fights. So, and the Cynthia Calvillo fight. Let's not forget that one, right? So she's been here before. She dealt with a lot of these, but again, she's getting older, right? She's 31, right? So it's a tough fight, but I'm going to go with Esparza here. I just think that she's going to be able to mix in some takedowns. It's a 3-round fight. And yeah, she definitely has cardio. And one thing I noticed with Yan, she's kind of straight up when she strikes, and she's not going to be able to sprawl on these takedowns like Carla does. Carla does these tricky wrestling takedowns where she'll lift one leg and then drive in. So it's like there's no room to sprawl. If she hits that on you, it's like you're almost going down, unless it's hard, right? Esparza knows what she's doing. She's one of the best wrestlers in that division. And yeah, I think she's going to be able to mix in some takedowns in a split decision type of fight, maybe unanimous, but I'm going to go Carla Esparza as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great underdog pick. I actually think she just, again, has more tools to win outside of the obvious striking disadvantage. But why don't we get off of that one? Let's move on to our main event of the evening, Rob Font versus Cody Garbrandt. I'll give you the honors of calling this one. How do you feel?
This is a really good fight. We got 2 guys in the bantamweight division that want to make some noise, that want to be contenders here for the title, and they're up there. These guys, I believe they should be in the top 5. For Cody's 6 and Rob Font's 4. So, yeah, this is a good fight. I think this is going to stay on the feet. I think it's going to come down to boxing. And I think when you look at the boxing, you look at Cody. Cody has smooth boxing. Cody knows what he's doing on the feet. And when it's a pure boxing match, he usually does well in these fights. But in this fight, he's fighting a guy that I think is just a bit longer. And you're a boxer, Harris, so you know that the jab is the most accurate punch. And the straight. And Rob Font throws those out all day long, and he has power in those, right? And so in a boxing match, I could see Rob Font's length being an issue. I suppose he has a better reach in this fight. He's 71 to 65. So yeah, he's going to be the longer guy. He's going to be able to piece them apart. He has power to knock you out. Cody, what's that guy's name again? The UFC fighter goes, I went Cody Garbrandt. I don't want to go Cody Garbrandt. You know, like he's trying to say, like, I don't want to go that crazy mode and lose the fight. Gilbert Burns said that. So it's like, if Cody gets mad in the fight, he's going to just like forget about the game plan and just start throwing things, and then he's going to get hurt, right? Rob Font's the wrong guy to do that with. Again, I think this is going to be a boxing fight, and I really think that I'm pretty confident here. I think that Rob Font's the better boxer. I think that length. I think he's going to be a problem here. So I'm going to go Rob Font here to win this fight.
Yeah, Rob Font is also going to be my pick, so I'll get that out the way right away. For some reason, this fight is giving me a feeling, the same sort of feeling that I had last week when we saw Edson Barbosa versus Shane Burgos. I'm not exactly comparing the fighters, but in this sort of comparison that's going on in my mind, Garbrandt is more on the Burgos side, whereas Rob Font is more on the Barbosa side. What I mean by that is, you know, as a pure boxer, Garbrandt might be the more dangerous guy. You know, he might have a bit more pop in his punches, although Rob Font definitely has it as well. But Rob Font, in my opinion, is probably the more diverse striker in this one. You know, again, if you look back at Burgos versus Barbosa, we knew Burgos is one of my favorite fighters. So we knew Burgos was the more dangerous puncher at the very least. But we knew Barbosa had those kicks, had the movement, had the length, or at least the longer striker of the two, and just presented a little bit more variety on the feet. And it was really about, you know, both of these guys were dangerous in that fight, but can Barbosa handle the danger that is Shane Burgos and use that diversity to his advantage? I feel a lot of the same things for this fight. I think Cody Garbrandt might be the more dangerous guy in this, definitely more dangerous boxer in close quarters. But Rob Font, to me, is the more diverse striker. You know, longer strikes, you know, longer punches, using that length, using different factors to really frustrate Cody in this one. And another thing you have to really think about as well, I mean, Rob Font, he was off for a little bit of time, if I'm not mistaken. Let's go to his record here. He was off. He beat Ricky Simone in December 2019, then took a full year off before he, you know, looked really good in December 2020 versus Marlon Moraes. Again, I'm sort of calling myself out here. I went with Marlon Moraes in that fight because I said to myself, there was too many question marks with Rob Font. We don't know how he's going to come back. You know, how is he going to look when he comes back? But when he came back, he looked extremely impressive. I remember the post-fight interview. He sounded very hungry. And I even kind of thought to myself, whoa, how are you propelling yourself up there already? He definitely deserves to be up there. And I think, you know, that hunger that he has, I think he's really gunning for a title shot here. Obviously, Cody Garbrandt as well, not going to take that away from him. But I see a little bit more in Rob Font right now. I see a little bit more. He might even knock Cody out because his hands looked really sharp against Marlon Moraes. So Rob Font is going to be my pick. This is a great main event. This is a very entertaining fight. You know, might just enjoy it as a fan. I don't think I'm going to put any coin on this. But I would say if I were to make a prediction on this fight 10 times, I would say at least 7 of those times I'm going with Rob Font. So just due to that, Rob Font is going to be my pick. why don't we take it to Vegas and get to some actual picks that we're going to throw some money on? What are you considering from an underdog perspective?
All right, underdog wise, Carla Esparza.
Agreed. Yeah, I'm not even going to waste any time analyzing any further. I completely agree with that. Plus 110, beautiful value there. She just has more tools than Xiaonan Yan, and should get it done. I actually kind of expect her to get it done. You know, granted, she can survive the stand-up. And then in terms of favorite pick or two, who do you like?
I like Dvořák and Bruno Silva.
Yeah. Again, I completely agree as well. And I think I'm actually going to put some coin on that. You look at David Dvořák and Bruno Silva. Again, I completely agree with that as a 2-fight parlay. $100 will return $220. For our bigger bettors, $250 will return $550. So a pretty healthy parlay, 2 fights, 2 fighters that should get it done. Really trying to get you guys this money here. So as usual, we would definitely appreciate all of that algorithmic stuff. You know, like the video, comment on the video. Let's have some good conversation in the comments. Let us know which picks you're considering, which underdog picks you're looking at, which favorite picks you're looking at. Let us know perhaps which parlay you're looking at as well. A subscription is more than appreciated at Boxingmmapicks, of course. And hey, man, again, we're trying to get you guys this money. So let's sign off on that. This is the main card prediction. UFC Vegas 27, a.k.a. UFC Fight Night, Rob Font versus Cody Garbrandt. He goes by the name of Zan. I go by the name of Harris. We go by the name of Boxing MMA Picks. Let's get this money.
Let's do it.